Aliens movie by Samantha Morton. As the men eat her stew, they find themselves unable to stop eating, tethered to the soup. These long strands of strength that get stuck in their throats. Cersei sings this sweet little incantation as she grabs their ears and faces, and it's molding their faces like clay, stretching out their ears into pit ears, and their full faces into snouts. It's so awesome. I love this sequence. Odysseus finds Cersei casually watching these pigs who just squeal and surround Odysseus, clearly trying to warn him, feeling that they saw the minds of the men. And finding the ring he'd given Eurylochus, Odysseus flies up to what's happening and grabs Cersei's crown. Cersei flies to meet her sister. Actually, in Greek mythology, Cersei's sister is Pasiphae, wife to Minos, who ended up giving birth to the Minotaur. I don't know if it's the same sister here, but Odysseus has why they were like this. And Cersei's like, we get along better this way. In Homer's Odyssey, it goes about a bit differently. The messenger god of Hermes ends up showing up to Odysseus and warns him about the switch, and he advises him that if he ends up acting like he's gonna attack her, Cersei's gonna be like, hey, cut to the head. And during that sex, Odysseus makes her swear to the gods to free her men. But there's no sex here. It's just grabbing the ground. Cersei snaps and she just reveals who his men are. They're primal, they're disgusting, invading beasts and just consume. I mean, Samantha Morton again, just amazingly reinforces the switch of giving it to Odysseus holding her sister Crow. She ends up singing again, whispering, into your disguises. Ooh, I love this line. The idea of identity concealment and disguise is such a huge motif in Homer's Odyssey. Odysseus is really a talented code switcher and a master of disguise. It's really a virtue of Zeus, who also just loves surprising mortals by taking various forms. So here, Cersei says, back into your disguises, to remind us that these armored soldiers of honor are actually disguises worn by savage beasts. That is a common feminist critique of Zeus, someone who takes the form of an animal and doesn't always wait for consent. It's KPM. Do you know people that haven't yet? Some things are worth protecting. Your devices are number. Learn more at internet website aikido.dev/10pm. Giving away the sales, the Underworld, aka Hades, the Underworld sequence is held up in Iceland in the month of June, during the eerie, all-daylight to midnight sun, in desolate terrain under windy and rainy conditions. Nolan chose Iceland to represent Hades because its cold landscape felt as far as possible from Odysseus' Mediterranean home. They dig a hole and fill it with sacrificial livestock blood, and from the black soil rises the sun, as well as the prophet Tiresias, James Raymar, and all of the veterans of Odysseus' campaigns. Now, Sinan corrects that he begged to take Antinous' rightful place when Antinous was drafted, but Antinous offered payment to his family, and now Sinan gives a lot back to Odysseus to, quote, give Antinous back his shame. Sinan shames Odysseus, asking, did you have to lie to me? Again, we see the theme of the noble lie, which is really a common theme in Nolan's work, from The Prestige, where Gordon lives a double life, lying to his wife for a noble cause, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, where Batman and Commissioner Gordon lie about who he did, and Interstellar, where there was the lie of the Plan A to save Earth, the noble lie that was also revealed in a Matt Damon scene. But Sinan is right to explain that there's nothing noble about a lie that amounts to a trick that destroyed civilization. Agamemnon's ghost finally speaks, saying that when he came home, Clytemnestra played a part, watching him obtain honors in his bed, and honors full of Agamemnon is heard by Aegisthus, the lover of Clytemnestra. Asks Christie's eventually read Odysseus. Actually, in the text, Christie's investigates her Aegisthus and his mother, Clytemnestra, responsibility and violence that is actually from the plot of the Norse side of the trilogy of plays by Aeschylus. Agamemnon advises Odysseus to not make the same mistake that when he is going to not just walk in the front door to the phrase, rather to come in disguise and take his time. Tiresias prophesizes Odysseus' next step of the silence for Odysseus and the island of Sciathos. Explore the promises to Odysseus' eventual return to reach honors his request, and this sequence was really to see the current of Achilles, at this point goes home, it's to Odysseus, forever a time and soul is served that the king always dead and destroyed. These immense souls of Odysseus' soldiers chase Odysseus back to sharing his women, only waiting for Odysseus' return honor. Now Odysseus recalls looks hearing the songs and spirits, instructs his work to take him in his life, and all their ears and these facts, like this, which the top way, this was in his like how it's in his life. Ancient Greece lay here like our mother's
We need to keep those bastards at bay while the tea is being dumped. Let me help. I'm yours to command. We've done it! Gunnar! We saved the last one for you. Best we get out of here.
From this, Telemachus realizes who this man is, and Odysseus says, I am a failure, and you are the worthy, beautiful son of Odysseus, of whom, when you finally meet, you will be so proud. From that time to this sunny moment, I lost it in the theater. Even though Odysseus is back at his home, he truly does have to take his time to learn the lessons from Agamemnon. He presents himself to Polybus and Antinous begging for food, and from below he sees how cruel they truly are. So they tell me able to see from a distance from above is Antinous, his favorite synod that originally was Antinous', and even chooses the name synod to make this catch to his pants. The feast is cleared, and Odysseus, still in disguise, sits across the screen from Penelope. The firelight in the scene causes the vertical and horizontal lines of the screen to glow, making this whole translucent wall visually echo the Tesseract construct bookcase, an interstellar, a translucent place. As that traveler finally made it home, in a sense, but still was not able to fully embrace his family, as that was the moment of insight and catharsis in Interstellar, and that Space Odyssey, that's the moment of insight of the Odyssey. The Alos pipe music returns, and now we see the aftermath of Troy from Odysseus' haunted perspective. The liberators of Greece were hailed in the songs as the songs that Penelope shut down. They were actually violent savages, killing women and children. I think Nolan could even missed in the screen that's included in Oppenheimer's vision of the atomic blast, and it looks almost Jim. I bet the Japanese didn't like it. Yes, this moment is fully in conversation with Oppenheimer, a movie that's like Spike Lee criticized for not showing the actual horrors of the human suffering of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and really left it all in Oppenheimer's mind. This time, Nolan does show the audience an eyewitness view of the death of civilization wrought by Odysseus' innovation. Like, do we think it's interesting how throughout this movie the Trojan horse is even propped up in a specific way, lugged around kind of like the device was in New Mexico throughout Oppenheimer, handled with great care, erected vertically, and ultimately by the end of the movie consuming the world in flame. And we finally learn that the reason Athena is the one god we see take human form in this movie, seen only by Odysseus throughout his travels. Zendaya actually just played a young, innocent woman of Troy, slaughtered innocents of Athena's temple. Ever since that moment, that Odysseus stopped Odysseus in the form of the goddess of wisdom. That's why earlier when Odysseus asked Athena why the gods don't speak more plainly to them, Athena responded, who doesn't understand pain? The pain that she's talking about is the pain that Odysseus has on seeing the slaughter of the original girl who took this form. Actually, it's funny how in all the interviews Zendaya gives behind the scenes promo, the outfit she's wearing is that big reveal hidden in plain sight. Odysseus says that with the trick of the Trojan horse, they broke Zeus's law forever. He says, quote, we lived in a world of palaces, trade, and language, blind in its beauty, until we broke it. Penelope answers the question posed by this movie of who are these mysterious people from the sea threatening to bring about the coming dark age. She tearfully says, you are the people from the sea. As Nolan reveals in the Tesseract of Interstellar, the mysterious fifth-dimensional beings who put all this in motion are us. It also matches the completeness of final line of Oppenheimer when J. Robert Oppenheimer tells Einstein that when they once stood at this pond, it speculated that they had started a chain reaction that would bring about the end of the world, and says, I I believe we did. Now Penelope puts her own plan into motion, unchallenged, to all the suitors in this locked hall. With the weapons moved to the upper storage room, Penelope unveils Odysseus' hunting bow for any suitor to string the bow and shoot an arrow through these 12 axes. No suitor is opposed to it. Even Antinous is like, I don't need to. But then this stranger, this veteran, steps up and puts them all to shame. He even seems to be toying with them by pretending like he can't do it at first, just so that Penelope will turn her back and he can win her over with just the sound of him stringing the bow and swinging the bowstring. And both Penelope and Antinous immediately recognize Odysseus perfectly flings the arrow. Hey, this is actually the origin of that TSG Entertainment studio bumper. When you saw The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it was spoiling the ending of this movie. All this is astonishment is cut short with an arrow right in the neck. Actually, this is Antinous' fate in the poem. All hell breaks loose. Melanthe is played by Logan Marshall Green, who's actually Melantho's twin brother, and also just as disloyal as his sister is. He runs up to the weapons storage where Eumaeus, knowing that this asshole is eavesdropping, locks him inside. Melanthe does break the floor to drop in weapons from above. It's kind of like Bane blowing a hole in the Wayne Enterprises armory, and Dark Knight Rises, and it starts dropping weapons through, but Leviticus duels him using the slow fighting tactic that Eumaeus taught him before, and he ends up defeating him and dropping the best weapon, a sword, down to Odysseus to overwhelm the 8 suitors. Eventually, more and more suitors respectfully kneel, recognizing that their king has returned. Odysseus slays Antinous, spitting the lot in his mouth, saying, "When you get to Hades, tell my men I will head west and honor them, and when you see Sinon, tell him I gave you back your shame." And then he kills him. Odysseus lies in Penelope's arms, embracing the centuries of darkness to follow in this collapsing Bronze Age. He says that his time in Ithaca will not be short due to death, but to exile, which is kind of another Dark Knight Rises echo there. Death or exile. In Homer's poem, there is one final test for Penelope where she arranges to have their bed moved to a new room. But Odysseus corrects them that would be impossible because their bed frame is carved out of a tree that he planted beneath their room. So upon hearing that correction, Penelope knows that this is her husband. Now, there is no mention of Odysseus' life after his homecoming in the poem. However, Tiresias' prophecy in Homer's poem does foretell that Odysseus must someday go on this return journey before he can die of old age. So I love that Nolan ends his film by actually showing us the beginnings of that journey as they lead Telemachus behind to take the throne and make good on their promises to each other to take their best. Clutch hands to the nest and chase the escaping sun. Kind of recalls the Grey Havens sailing out west at the end of Frodo and Bilbo's journey in Return of the King. Odysseus indicates that the songs remembering this tale will be all the future has to remember, an era with limited written communication. And as they hope that civilization will rise again, we're left with Odysseus' vision from the night Troy burned, the Trojan horse itself being consumed in flame. Comment down below with your thoughts on this film, and a special thanks to one of our In Our Underground subscribers. Let's go classic literature here and say Dante for supporting us at the executive producer level. You can get all of our exclusive bonus content by clicking the link in the description below or reach nrunderground.supercast.com. Big thanks to Studio Tech Brian Camp, New York Search Editor Josh and Herman, and Freeland, and all of the supporting editors for their work on this video. Follow me at Eat A Boss, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. This is what you get with cubic zirconia status. This is Illinois diamond status.
These upgrade us last week. When you want an upgrade that actually feels like an upgrade, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay.
The Assassin's Creed Iceberg. I haven't really got any intro waffle, so don't worry, but all I will say is, if you enjoy this, be sure to give the video a like, it goes a long way. Comment what you would want to add to the iceberg and any corrections down below. The discussion is always welcome, and this episode will be on Spotify, so if you want the convenience of that platform, the link will be in the description. Be sure to give it some love, but without further ado, grab a drink or a snack as we take a deep dive into the Assassin's Creed Iceberg. Titans, the conflict that started it all. The Templar Order strives for a peaceful world, but only with their permission through complete and utter dominance. The Assassins are the secret order that devote their lives, and occasionally their ring finger will get to that, to the cause of pushing back against them. This is a view that wouldn't end at a certain point in history. Instead, spanning far into the modern day. Real historical implementations. One thing that makes the Assassin's Creed games so unique and fun is that we get to be immersed in a time period of the far past. And AC, has for the most part designed their worlds to be reasonably accurate to the real world, with many historical landmarks and figures showing up, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Colosseum, the Notre Dame, Leonardo da Vinci, and Charles Dickens, and general attention to detail overall for the time period. Even the Assassins and Templars are based off of real-world counterparts. The Assassins derived from Shashin, a secret Persian order skulking around in the early thousands, and the Knights Templar, which were very powerful and high-ranking Catholic knights. These are the guys that went on those massive crusades. Granted, this series is no Kingdom Come, but it's grounded enough that you can learn a few things and get immersed. As the series has gone on, the accuracy has decreased, but the stuff they have put in is very cool. RPG Shift. This franchise has always been known for its always moving action-adventure gameplay, but eventually an abrupt shift happened after Syndicate was released in 2018. Was that 2015? Surely not. Okay, I just went to double check that, and my perception of time is gone. It's completely cooked. That's terrifying, actually. Anyway, after it was released in 2015, 2 years later, in the beloved 2017, Origins came out, and it was different. It looked different. Played different. The menus and combat were, I'm gonna say it again.
Dude, what do I owe this creed on, Captain?
Different.
The letters you speak of, what are they?
Oh, now you want to know. Captain Kidd's letters, boy. He hid a great treasure somewhere and sent letters to 4 of his crewmen along with a strange piece of leather. If you find the men, you'll find the scallywag. It's that easy, it is.
May I see them?
You might be a captain, but you're not too bright.
Even if they slowly strayed away from the Assassin's Creed identity, it's no secret that someone at Ubisoft definitely played The Witcher 3 and got a huge boner whilst running to the boardroom meeting because the RPG elements all fell. Some people embraced the change, and to be completely real, I'm Switzerland on this one. I think having both classic style and modern RPG games is one of the series in different ways, with my biggest criticism being that Valhalla was so bloated, it was driving me insane compared to the RPG mechanics and the structure stretching it out because it was rough. If it was more for the time, it would have honestly been much higher than Anyway, I'm rambling, but as you can see, this was an insane canon event for the franchise, and I really want to hear your thoughts on these modern RPG games. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Resynced. Widely considered as the unrivaled coup, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is a brilliant game that shakes up the Assassin's Creed formula and holds a really special place in my heart with how good its story is, and I'm also pretty nostalgic about Ubisoft digging their own grave lately, which you'll surely see in the next lyric. It's no mistake that to try and make a comeback, they're choosing this game to remaster right now. It's going to be coming out on the 9th of July and looks promising so far, albeit some of the RPG mechanics are creeping their way back in and overstepping their implementation, despite Ubisoft saying that's not really the style the game's going for, but overall we're more on the safe side. It's good for the general human combat, but I'm sure you've seen that one clip of Edward having a full-on duel with a boar, hitting the Virgil combo just to take the thing down. Case in point, it looks solid overall, still using most of the source that made the original such a banger. It's just missing a lot of the memorable details the older game had, with kid and play combat, and picking weapons up. Well, we'll have to wait and see, and if it's out by the time you're watching this, what's the game? Attack on Titan crossover. So about Ubisoft digging their own grave. Well, this was them burying themselves in it. On a random-ass day after the launch of Shadows, they had the stellar idea to do, as the entry says, an Attack on Titan crossover, in a game that's supposed to be grounded in a historically accurate feudal Japan, and we can dress like Mikasa fucking Ackerman? For those uncultured swines, Attack on Titan is some peak fiction, an anime where humanity have to live behind walls, hide, and attempt to fight titans, with these mysterious, huge, humanoid-looking monsters, and the plot unravels from there, and it's crazy. Its guys are here. It just feels like a cheap sell on Ubisoft's part, and this would maybe have been cool in other games or as its own game, but not awkwardly placed in an AC game. This made people as annoyed as you'd expect with how forced it felt, and what we got looked like a complete mess, because as I've made apparent, this just doesn't fit here, and it's not even implemented well. This was either top tier rage bait or a company charging you to see it suicide. Modern day segments. It's not always swashbuckling assassin pirates or a youthful Italian womanizer getting in way over its head in Florence. The series has a storyline going on in the modern era. This takes you away from the game's time setting to show you what characters like Desmond and Mila are up to, since we're seeing the memories of the Creed through modern day technology called the Animus, where, like I mentioned earlier, the Assassin v Templar conflict is still very much ongoing, and so is the conflict of deities that are superhuman. Many people feel like these interrupt gameplay in the same way the MJ sections did in the Spider-Man game. So as the franchise goes on, we seem to be getting less and less of them. And in the Black Flag remake, they claim to have completely removed them. Canon characters. As the RPG elements roll into the series, there are times where you play as different versions of the same character, or a different one entirely, like being able to play as a male or female Eivor, and Alexios or Cassandra. This led to the natural question as to which character or gender is canon to its respective game. It's been confirmed to be female Eivor in Valhalla and Cassandra in Odyssey. The same is true for certain choices in game, and Shadows gave us canon mode, which will auto-pick choices that are true to the story the devs wanted to tell. Prince of Persia spin-off. Ubisoft made a beloved series of games way back when that were set in a sand-filled Middle Eastern fantasy world of adventure and parkour, where you hunt down magic artifacts. That sounds exactly like Assassin's Creed. Originally, the devs were going to do yet another Prince of Persia game. Prince of Persia Assassins. It would have you playing as one, and looking at the early footage, it's like seeing Better Calls being the Mona Lisa being painted. If I showed you this and said something like, "Did you know this was early Assassin's Creed 1 gameplay, and that's why," in a TikTok accent, I think you'd believe me. And if I were watching, I'd believe it. Technically though, it's right, because as they were spitballing ideas about the game and getting the project off the ground, they were becoming exceedingly more invested in history as opposed to fantasy. And that's how we got here today.
Do you know that your devs have installed?
Some things are worth protecting. Your devices are among them. Learn more at internet website aikido.dev/10pm.
This element check completely changed my life, and it came from a car accident I almost forgot about. I'm honestly shaking as I record this. I never imagined something this big could come from an accident that felt so small at the time. If you've been in any kind of vehicle accident in the past 2 years, even if you think it was minor, even if you were just a passenger, you might be entitled to far more than you realize. Here's my story. I was stopped at a red light when, bam, a distracted driver slammed into me from behind. My neck felt a little stiff, but the car seemed okay. We exchanged info and I drove home. Big mistake. Over the next few weeks, the pain got worse. I started missing work. My car developed issues I hadn't noticed right away. The insurance company tossed me a tiny offer and basically said, take it or leave it. I almost did. Then my sister's boyfriend Marcus told me about something called free case evals. He said, dude, just answer 4 questions. What's the worst that could happen? At first, I thought he was exaggerating, but he had used the exact same tool after his own accident and told me it changed everything for him. So I clicked the link, answered 4 simple questions, and in less than 30 seconds, it told me I might actually qualify for a real settlement. I figured, yeah, right. But I had nothing to lose.
It is done.
Johnson is dead?
No. He retreated when we destroyed the T.
Oh, to have some new scheme, I'm sure. You should have killed him.
There was no need.
Time will tell if you speak the truth.
The most well-known ones are things like the Apple of Eden and the Spear of Leonidas. But when I've been researching these exact numbers
Radon Hagedum! Ganondorko, why are you here? Has something happened?
William Johnson has returned with all the money required to buy our land. He meets with the elders as we speak. I have begged him to resist, but I fear he shall have his way unless you intervene.
How is this possible? We destroyed the tea.
The Templars are nothing if not resourceful. You should have heeded my warning.
Please, you have to stop them.
Of course. Can you tell me where they're meeting?
This wasn't the kind of thing they could simply parry counter, and so this dealt critical damage to them. There's so much complex lore and history to these guys that I simply won't be able to cover here, and a big reason many people checked out the modern day storyline is due to these being needlessly complicated. But the idea that Isu is a good one, and I wish they could come back in a more riveting way. Hidden Blade Finger Sacrifice. One of the most notable characteristics of Altair, Bayek, and Bazin is that they're missing the ring finger of their hidden blade hand. The point of this was to help them wield it. It would require you to sacrifice said finger since the blade would need to slide through the gap. This served as a way to make it more practical and as a show of devotion to the hidden ones, which is really awesome, not gonna lie. It started with Bayek being a silly goofer and putting his own finger off by accident when using the hidden blade to kill this guy. It was eventually changed later in the series by Altair upon learning of some knowledge via the Apple of Eden, where he'd course correct the design so that you could keep a complete collection of fingers. Skull and Bones. Ubisoft made a game that they had in development for years and was smugly boasting about it being a, and I quote, quadruple A game, which hearing that makes my face do origami. Well, hang on, exceptional. I know you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but what does that have to do with the Assassin's Creed iceberg? Firstly, that was uncalled for, and second, this was a pirate-themed game that was supposed to lean heavily on Black Flag's naval combat. And it was a resounding flop, like Concord with bows kind of flop, and now it lies in Davy Jones' locker. So if fans of AC4 were this game, they were shouting. However, getting the remake of Golden Rosary 2, which also found the inspiration. So to say, being good, Colossal Squids. My favorite part about this era of gaming was the random Easter eggs that they expected players. Sometimes they were silly, and sometimes they were the Colossal Squids. In Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio could find one inside the waters of the Assassin's Temple by waiting around on the beach and seeing the giant beast swim by with an ominous glowing eye and a grenade of words. Then it escalates to his terrible shooting out, flailing around as a warning before crashing down into a rock. There's another one seen in Black Flag where one diving into the Antoka shipwreck and waiting around by a window. A whale will swim by, then a giant squid emerges and viciously grabs its tentacles around the mammal and wrestles it into the abyss, showing off the scale of such an alien creature. Unfortunately, we can't believe those boys decided something else. And then I said, be a shark's belly by now. Oh, hey, we're about to go on a big old shark. Barely got it, just one more good hit.
Izzy not gonna get kanusta ne Johnson soon jot the rest.
Changing everything for us. It made it stop though without PE treatment. So now we know it can stop it and having longer lasting effect. We just filled out this intake form to get started, and the whole process is 100% unlicensed provider that's been in the right personalized treatment for their husband and it's also for free in this new packaging and prescribed. No office visits, pharmacy treatment, or insurance required. Seriously, if you're ready to improve your sex life, it's nothing but a day.
What's this? Could it be? Well, lads, looks like we hit the jackpot. Blackbot will be chasing us to the A to C for this, and he does right. This more advocate my impressions aside. This video's partner, Holy, may be one of the greatest phrases out there. A deliciously crisp, affordable beverage that isn't filled with loads of shit. Instead, opting for natural flavors and colors. They offer a wide variety of drinks like energy, getting through these editing sessions, hydration, which keeps me going with my work levels, milkshakes for romancing smooth tree, and iced tea, something they've gotten me ahead of people, so thanks for that, guys. is. Who knew iced tea could be so peak? Let me tell you, never me until I tried this for the first time. The ugly side of energy drinks and beverages tend to be more like vacuums. Probably are the remedy to that, but their drinks could clutch at 80 pence per serving on their energy drinks, for example. They're sugar-free, and I've got to recommend a start set deluxe, so you get plenty of product to last you a good while. And to celebrate the World Cup right now, you get a free go-go shaker as a nice bonus too. They call themselves the soft drinks revolution for a reason, and if you want to give this genuine refreshing stuff a taste, and keep a feel-good cool watcher on your pirate voyages this summer, and because of their party can get in your gaming room, then make sure you use the link in the description and pin comment to support your boy. And as a little something extra at checkout, you can use coupon code EXCEPTIONAL for 10% off and Exceptional 5 for a nice £5 off your order. So, if there's something involved, why are we talking a bit? Because it's good, damn you. Thank you, Holly, for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to it. Eagle Vision came from Interbreeding. I mentioned that the Isu are beings that are above human capability. Well, Eagle Vision came from these superior beings. You see, they have 6 senses. When they made humans, which yes, they made humans, by the way, I forgot to mention that, they made them with 5. Even a little cheeky nerve, just so it's easier to enslave them. Well, they actually bred with humankind, and in doing so, ended up passing down some of their power in the form of Eagle Vision. This 6th sense will be used to their advantage. Discovering things. This Assassin's Creed are level of self-accuracy. What's lying is everything. These words warriors. These were little take around the same. Policy, Origins, Valhalla, and yes, Mirage, although that was mainly now, you will see through each respective setting bits of information about historical figures and the day-to-day life of its characters. Think of it as an educational version of the game.
How? By signing our minds over to you, then we'll be as one in your debt forever.
Sir William, you have a point. What hope have we against their blood-powder empires? Spiritual guidance, they always have. Did they not guide us here? Yes. That's right on that. Great. This is a mistake. We should sign. Those being China, released on the 21st of April 2015, India on the 12th of January 2016, and Russia only a month later on the 9th of February. They're 2D platformers, which was a first for the series, and to my knowledge, the last. Valhalla doesn't count. To be honest, I never played them at the time because I remember being annoyed when I was younger, and they weren't fully realized AC games. But now, I think I'd enjoy them for what they are. I've only ever heard good things about the trilogy. If you've played them, let me know what the games are like. Altair's crossbow. When you think of Altair and his assassin equipment, you think of his sword and of course his blade, and if you remember him having a crossbow, you're probably right. In trailers and promotional art, he's always seen a staple weapon on his back. But when the game came out, it was nowhere to be found. The reason for the removal is because that
Yes. Have I not always been an advocate? Have I not always sought to protect you from harm?
The thing was busted. Too busted. And it needed to go. Templars aren't inherently bad. It's really easy to go through a lot of the Assassin's Creed games like AC1, the Ezio Trilogy, and so on. The truth is, that's not entirely the case. This isn't some sort of secret though. We've got multiple mods of this who hate them just like hate them in AC3. An entire game about a guy that betrayed the Brotherhood because of their artifacts. They have a game mode that caused the destruction of 2 towns. Do I personally think they're the wrong with the Assassins? Yeah, that nuance definitely gives them an edge. And once you play enough Assassin's Creed games, you'll start picking up on these little nuances. And this also applies to the Assassins. They're not inherently good. Desert hallucinations. In AC Origins, there's a smoking toss from the vast deserts of Egypt to the one and all. The Hebrew caused by accident suffer from the reborn. This leads to being able to see many different types of mirages and hallucinations. A falling asteroid, a plague of locusts, fire seeing its dead self on the dry sand, a distant burning tree that snuffs out its flames and remains fully intact by the time you get to the fleeing wanderers that fade away, weird flashy speckled vision, sand drawings done by Kemu. And there are still a ton more. Definitely one of those fun Easter eggs I mentioned that turns your desert trips much more psychological and creepy. And with such a long list of them, you'll be caught off guard more than you'd expect, and there may be some you wouldn't see in the playthrough.
Thought you might send somebody over
Scan the code here to learn more about this Reddit offer and browse our entire inventory anytime. These offers expire at the end of the month, so take advantage of the savings today.
Oh no.
Syndicate, I'm sure you wouldn't be too surprised if I told you that Syndicate, that weird game in the franchise that had 2 characters, was supposed to have co-op before it being a co-op feature. Well, that's slightly misleading actually. You would think it would be Jacob and Yugi Fry missions, one person playing as each twin. That wasn't exactly what they did find. It was actually supposed to be similar to Unity, I think. It's more than plausible that there would have been missions like heists and target assassinations that would challenge you with the bullets. There is some data left over in the game files that gives a sliver of what it could be like, with a variety of planned missions that were sound recently on coasts, strange landmarks.
William Johnson is dead, and with him, the Templar plot to steal the land of my people. But in ending this threat, I have revealed another. On his body was a letter addressed to John Pelican containing orders to root out and destroy Patriot weapons and supply. Should he succeed in this, the colonists will be unable to maintain their resistance, and the Templars will surely take control. So long as Pitcairn lives, the danger remains. I need to find him. He needs to die.
With one that became so infamous due to how it completely defied all logic. Like, even for a bug, this was bad. It wasn't one of those little things where maybe an animation was janky or an item vanished in midair. Oopsie poopsie. Check this out. I love this stupid ship. The ship comes floating up like the legendary Flying Dutchmans did. The crewmates fly into the air, about to see some uncharted planets, and the water creates a jarring hole. Completely on accident, may I remind you. This hasn't been patched out to my understanding, meaning this ridiculous catastrophe is still out there. But it's seldom found. And the part that really shivered my timbers was that it's been seen in the remake. But I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of cool. Assassin's Creed comics and manga. Although the books are well known, the comics and manga are a bit more niche and less generally known. Yeah, they have some insane plot significance. Wrapping up Juno's storyline, which was a significant part of the modern-day plot, being an E-suit that wanted to re-enslave humanity, that was being brewed up from Brotherhood to Syndicate. The series Assassin's Creed Rising gave this an ending. The Templars managed to resurrect her, give her a physical form, and Desmond's son, Elijah Miles, and Charlotte de la Cruz, once and for all neutralize her. They cover some interesting ground, like the Vietnam War, and more of the modern-day stuff for those still seeking it, and they also return to games like Origins and Black Flag. Connor's daughter became an assassin. One of those I want to talk about here because it covers an interesting little story beat for one of
You
the
must
goes.
be Connor.
After the events of 3, he had a daughter and named her whatever this says. Looking up the pronunciation, it seems to be Yodi Kyode, so that's what I'm going to go with. The village they lived in was not too fond of women doing the hunting, and so Connor and her would sneak out to the woods to go get some game. During one of their hunting sessions, she went and sprained her ankle, leading Connor to go and get some water to tend to her injury. Yodi Kyode ended up seeing something in the ground though. Fresh wolf tracks. Fear began to rise up inside her as an eagle soared overhead. This led to her having an awakening of sorts, because in that moment, she channeled some clairvoyant warging or some kind of projection, or whatever you want to call it, and could use the bird to warn Connor of an upcoming wolf ambush, allowing him to get some extra pellet that I'm sure he made a sweet snare pouch with. He returned to his wounded daughter as she explained what happened. And this was when he knew he had to teach her to become an assassin in Creed. Not only does this story serve as a nice extra for Connor, but it's cool to see that this type of gift is the same power that characters like Bayek, Eivor, and Cassandra had. Magic is becoming canon. We need to talk about the concept of magic in this franchise. Assassin's Creed has always had that historically accurate tether, but more modern titles have been morphing it into Skyrim, and Ubisoft...
What you got for me? Not to hang the jib, but it's not enough. You'll need some more.
Crazy. The intrigue of AC crossing advanced technology with a historical background in and of itself felt like magic. Especially to the ancestors. Kind of like how in Warhammer 40k, stuff like computers are so unknown that they're treated as though it's some sort of primeval magic, but I digress. It's been explained away that the reason why you can fight things like fire tools and fire words and stuff like this, and then there's the abilities like Bazin, shifting, and taking over fall damage. These are all under the umbrella of Animus Glitches and tech, which, you know what, fair enough, but it feels like they've been stretching it a lot to the point where people are questioning if magic is becoming more of a reality. Mainly a lot of random stuff you'd see in something like Valhalla with the curses, and the biggest offender lately being Shadow, showing mythological creatures stood around like wild Pokemon, and an Oni demon from the Dead by Daylight crossover that swiftly turns this
What you got for me?
shenanigans. There's also
You brought me some good pieces. That's worth a letter for sure. Here you go, Captain.
I will be back for the rest.
Seemingly no explanation. Are you seeing what I'm seeing on screen right now? So magic, mythology, and everything in between is walking a tightrope, it feels at the moment, as to whether or not it's 100% real. But even then, using technology has gotten so complex that it might as well be. So whether these explanations are going to hold, or if they're even going to bother making them in the future titles, it's a bit of a head scratcher. I've seen YouTube videos and read countless posts talking about this very subject, and it seems like there's a lot At first it was very small and maybe even plausible references like the giant squid. Then we got to there's a Minotaur you can fight, but it's just ancient technology from Isu, and now it's a boss fight that is a literal demon. And after you clean that up, you can go draw some mythological foxes. Color grading theory. Assassin's Creed games like 1, all 3 Ezio games, and to be fair, all of them up to about Odyssey have this steep colours to them. When you think of Florence and 2, imagine you paint watercolour-esque nudes or paints painting the region, wanting into this beauty. Then 3 has those cold tones. Honestly, I don't think there was much significance here. Bergland was just really cold. 4 is the strong, hazy sunrises that sail the way up to our ship. These types of things were deliberately done by the devs to set a certain tone, reflect weather, visually tell you what each region will offer, and some really nice detail that helps make these games look pristine every time. It's still around, albeit not as strong, except for Raj bringing it back. And if you've ever wondered why it looks so nice, this is a big reason, and a lot of thought went into this during early development. And I really want to give it props for Assassin's Creed 1. It's aged like a beautiful, delicate, fine wine. I don't drink wine, so I don't know why I'm picking it up like that, but you get my point. The constant grading of light shows that the Templar have order, strict code that allows no freedom or expression to come about. It's just, yeah, it's me. We need to move on. Blade Runner references. Although there's lots of pop culture references in Assassin's Creed, some are way more obscure and slowly put in than others, like this one here. In the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC in Origins, you can find a little note that says, I have seen things. Things that cannot be believed. Chariots of flame, struck down by the bow of Orion, imperishable stars, dying eternally. And through it all, this frail world, held together by spiders still, teetering on the edge of nothingness. This is a sick reference to the first Blade Runner film, which if you haven't seen, you absolutely should. It's very noteworthy. And the second one's great too. It's got the trophy in it. Spoilers for the first film. It's a little nod to Roy's speech at the end of the film. Tears of Rain.
Affection. I watched the videos. Clips in the top 10 hours a game. All
And there's a second reference house at the start of the side quest new kid in town, throw in the awful tourist line. Character agent Assassin's Creed 2 spans over the course of 23 years. Ezio going from baby to old. Long-standing characters in the game look the same from all. Leonardo, Claudia, Maria, Mario watch no sign of agents to these past. What felt like an oversight is instead the tender reputation of the bygone hero of the Xbox 360 and the PS3, only allowing Ubisoft to make little changes to Ezio. Some game files remain for Leonardo and Mario that they've been implemented would have shown visible aging on them. I'm guessing this was intended for most of Ezio's family and allies, and Ubisoft finished those two and then realised it's not.
Yeah, man.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know what your developers have installed? Some things are worth protecting. Your devices are among them. Learn more at internet website aikido.dev/10pm.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a very exciting announcement for parents everywhere. It's called Mint Kids. It's a plan specifically designed for kids just getting their first phones.
It's a full-size plan for your mini-me.
Nothing like that.
Well, it's unlimited talk and text. 5 gigabytes data for a perfectly sized plan so I can't get in too much trouble, right, Big Ryan?
See, this is the kind of stuff that I don't want my kids seeing online.
Upsy?
No. Get out of here.
Upsy?
It's
Upsy?
verifying the picture.
Reincarnation in Assassin's Creed was at first purely speculative, then shifted towards it being more than a mere what if. To explain, back in the day, it was pointed out in forums that Altair, Ezio, and Desmond all had the same star on their lip. The implication here being that they may not just be ancestors, but that there could be some semblance of reincarnation happening. And to be fair, it makes sense, enough sense to be a compelling little theory. Believe it. Not all the ancestors had it though. But Origins came in and we saw the same star again at Rock Bio. And all this was coincidence. Yeah, there is no reincarnation really. This was instead a visual moment to show the passing of the torch and a little front theme to show how they're all connected and some walking the same path. Then Valhalla came out and told us that reincarnation is real, just not in the way we thought it was. Where at the end of the story we learned that the remaining Isu, who survived the Toba eruption, uploaded their consciousness into the cell DNA, and in turn got reincarnated as Eivor, Sigurd, Basim, and so on. So throughout the number of times that it's been brought up in the series, in one way or another, being an argument that was hard to entirely refute, reincarnation is technically possible, just not in the way people speculate about for years. Headless Horseman. The tale of the Sleepy Hollow birthed the famous folklore, the Headless Horseman, an entity that would bring the village in New York on a steed, clad in knight's armor and searching for head, specifically his head that's missing. In AC3, you can find a campfire with a few people savoring its warmth, and when you talk to them, one guy will tell you that there's a former mercenary with a pumpkin for a head chasing people and taking theirs. Connor does what he does best and manages to find him straight away, which is very accidentally comedic because the quest is not too far away at all. He sits on a body and when inspecting it, a villainous laugh and hits walls with a pumpkin on his head and a green spectral light shining out like a jack-o'-lantern. He rides off into the forest, leaving us alone with the corpse. That's not the last we see of him, surprisingly. He decides to bless us with his presence again in the road, where Shay can find him out in the graveyard around the valley and have a scrap with him. He looks different this time, with no pumpkin, just a full head would be, and he's wielding an axe. The catch is, they're not actually killed by normal means. It's absolutely no great that he got to shield and test his head and rid the world of the menace, which I like the implication that he used to put his head on the grave just walked off from it. Don't know what he did in mind when he left it there, but I guess it was contingency. Cassandra is the strongest. Power scaling can get ridiculous. Like, maybe most Redditors do enough calculations to land them a job in NASA, yet they're somehow unemployed. But when it comes to which of these insane assassins are the strongest, ironically, it's the mercenary that wins. Her combat abilities are cracked, and she has the most Isu DNA flowing through her, which makes her borderline superhuman, and she was doing bits with the broken spear Leonidas. And when it comes to pure strength and combat technique, there's a moment in the Valhalla crossover series DLC where she has a kerfuffle with Eivor. Sorry, let me say the full name. Eivor, the big strong Viking, is a reincarnation of Odin, and although they find themselves at a stalemate, it is reasonable that with Cassandra being around 1,300 years old at this point due to the Saturnians preventing her from aging, that means that in all of that time she would have been getting some insane combat experience. So hell, I wouldn't be surprised if she can't talk beforehand. And also, but see, it looks like Eivor was struggling way more than Cassandra was. Maybe that was accidental, but she's way more chipper about the whole fight, while Eivor is on the defense a lot. And I will say in full confidence that if they would have kept going, Eivor would be done. Young Edward Kenway. When we see Edward, he is apparently 22. 22! So he was way older, I guess he picked up a few night shifts. But anyway, there's no rifle time skips except for the post-credits scene. But originally, a flashback would take us through a memory of his 12-year-old self, where we'd seen the company of real-life pirate legends, William Avery and Captain Kidd. This was apparently spitballed early on, and it's cool how this shows Edward has always had ties to the sea. Plans changed though, and the idea was discarded. I would have loved to have seen this, but what we got was cinema anyway, so it's whatever. Although, if they won, small idea remake, maybe, please. Try the best. This guy is weird. Fine, there he is. Or at least you don't really know. I can't blame you. That's the worst thing. Since he only shows up briefly in scene, he's in the first few missions, and then that's it. He has valid games, Assassin's Creed Syndicate before surface, showcasing targets as named, and the footage seems to have gone missing, and all I can find of it are from Fizzy's video on the guy. What do we see in the screenshots? That protagonist wearing the exact same robes as him. His sudden disappearance, as though something had to be cut from him, and the playable main character energy is given off, which could just be me, but does anyone else see it? Has snowballed into a theory that maybe he was supposed to be the sole protagonist of the game in its early production. Right up until the idea of the Fry siblings came into full effect, and knowing that, seeing him in game does feel off. Eivor grave in Assassin's Creed 3. Valhalla shows us that Eivor was buried in Vinland, which is located in North America. Exactly the same region as AC3 that you can explore. The coolest shit ever has a line from this game that came out 14 years ago with this one that will release 8 years after it. Heimbach must genuinely be a different breed because he must have used some crazy eagle vision to go onto the two games and line up not only where Eivor arrived at Vinland, but where he'd be laid to rest. It's determined by looking at all the geometry and putting the pieces together with the AC3 map and estimating how it could have changed since 3 is set way after Valhalla. And in doing so, it can be found right here, at this cliff overlooking the lake and mountains that are off in the distance. Trippy to think that Eivor was just chilling there and Connor and probably some players can unknowingly walk over one of the graves of someone who helped out the Hidden Ones. And it's even wilder to think how this was completely accidental on the dev's part, but with how the history and geography of the games align, it's there. It's gotta be a favourite of mine on the iceberg. Ezio Family Ghosts. There's a completely hidden, creepy secret in AC2 where if Ezio goes here at Palazzo Auditore, nothing happens, even if you went there any other time. Stumble here during sequence 13 though, and you'll greeted with the ghosts of Ezio's past. The family he's lost on his journey so far, like his brother's father, the same man in a different time, the one before he started a lifeline devotion to a great cause, changing his very identity. That time, being one of smaller scope and ignorance, that stopped him from reaching his potential and drowning in his own little pleasures. And so I don't know if this is a literal supernatural encounter, but more so a reminder of the family Ezio lost, and how the echoes of days past haunt him. So much has changed since then. This is a spooky Easter egg that most will never see, yet billions must. Fate of the Jackdaw, the legendary boat that belonged to Edward Kenway, didn't stay with him until the end like we thought. He politely borrowed it in 1715, and he'd go on to turn it into something resembling a door wedge. Oh, sorry, that was my gameplay. He would go on to conquer the seas with it during the Golden Age of piracy. The boat was in a prime until 1722, where Edward retires from the Seven Seas and the Assassins, gifting the boat to them as a farewell. Now, this is where it gets blurry. Jump to 1735. 13 years later, in Freedom Cry, Cadwalley can go to some random spot in the sea and find, you guessed it, the destroyed Jackdaw, laying lifeless and abandoned by burned in the ocean. And you have the choice to grab a head to commemorate a beloved captain. And so this has become a niche mystery in the franchise, where there are significant gaps in its historical timeline leading into where it is now. It's not that it sank Vessel for debate, but the events and the reasoning for it getting there in the first place. Desmond would be the ultimate assassin. The modern day story was meant to have the interest
Got some more?
Desmond was supposed
Let's
to be
have a
the
look
final
then.
assassin.
If you've been trying to run a rig, I won't have it. Find some more.
To hold the torch. And although he did join the modern
Got some
assassins,
more?
I think it's more of a...
Let's have a look then. If you've been trying to run a rig, I won't have it. Find some more.
Like how we'd see the ancestors we play throughout the series hit an insane potential. How this info got revealed? Well, it was spoken by none other than the legendary VA, Nolan North, who discussed what Ubisoft had in mind for Desmond at a convention.
The original story of this was written as Desmond goes on these adventures, and they said we're running into 6 games. And each game, Desmond would get, this was the original pitch, Desmond would get the abilities of his, okay, Altair, now he has those, then it's Edison, he has them, then it's going to be this guy. And ultimately by the last game, he would be the ultimate assassin of all these vehicles that travel back. Well,
Come.
This was one person told me this, so I might be speaking out of school. But it was like an hour, and I was like, oh, that's so cool.
We're gonna come back to this little storyline as it's part of something much bigger. Hidden Blade was mechanically possible. One of the coolest things I learned is that due to the devs wanting to make the first game as historically accurate as they could, this extended to the equipment at the time, except for the crossbow, which got shot back. But the Hidden Blade 2 was also a part of this commitment to the bit. I'm not an engineer or a mechanic, see, I don't even know which one it is, but there's concept art showing a more detailed look at them. And with what we know about technology during the 1100s, a spring-loaded retractable blade would have been pulled off. There's something about money that actually annoys me. I would have to say, when you take a paycheck, I already did the work. Why am I forward? It's taking days to turn out. No, exactly. That's what so, what's the alternative? Child. It's like $100 every pay, like it. Okay, that's it. That actually talks to pay. Those reasons also to do some time. Not just sitting around and doing your own life. And be thinking too. Yeah, exactly. You don't show the paycheck, don't think that it should be a child's game. Subject 16 glyphs. Around AC2 await 20 strange-looking glyphs that act as unique little puzzles for the series and are cryptic, fractured memories that Ezio can stumble across and solve in order to reveal the truth. That's the actual name of the video you'll get if you complete all of them. But what it shows is the rebellion against the Isu, and we also get the report of humans being slaves in Eden. Speaking of which, that's what the binary at the end translates to, which for the second game in the franchise, these were huge bombshells. The puzzles themselves take you through loads of historical and religious moments in this creepy UI that feels so detached from Ezio's adventures in Italy. It's going back to these moments captured by paintings and artifacts, and realizing that they're hiding things, like pieces of Eden, and that things are much more sinister as these historical figures all had such overwhelming, supernatural power due to the pieces of Eden they had. An example being that Joanna of Arc, someone who was burned at the stake for heresy, has that twist here, where the same thing happened as it did in history, but the Templars wanted a piece of Eden she had, and so they coordinated her execution. And I'll stop waffling and show you some of it, and you'll see this weird ARG historical horror vibe it has.
Bloody hell! Can you help me?
You be able to make it to the house?
Where did this go? They were strewn around by Subject 16.
I think the ball took only flesh.
And what is your name?
It was the guy that was doing all this.
Miriam.
Do you live nearby?
Desmond was, but the strain of it was too much for him.
I don't have a home per se. I took to the frontier when I was a young girl. I made my life out here ever since. Living where the land makes it easiest.
Not a common choice for a woman of the colony.
No, it's not. But truth be told, it was this, the convent or the brothels. I prefer the open air.
Wait, you guys don't just hold the right trigger and move forward? The parkour has seen a lot of changes and gone a little flat as a RPG era. But oh, sweet, beautiful game, did the mechanics have a much more intricate skill ceiling before then? Plus, many people will say that the hidden complexity of parkour came from Unity, vastly improving the system overall. It was there all along, especially with AC1. For example, there's a hidden ball mechanic where Altair can do this cool animation if you hold the drop button at just the right time when jumping to a beam. Look at this sick thing. This is completely unexplained, and there are so many niche little maneuvers like it. Another example being in Brotherhood. Apparently you can drop from a roof and safely land below using the punch animation. All the jacks are simple at first, but can help you save a ton of time slowly scaling walls when you know how to use them. Parkour in this series from 1 to Unity has so many of these features that are learned entirely by trial and error or some lovely AC junk, that someone who knows what they're doing can get around faster and cool whilst doing it. The topic is so complex that the Go YY has made an entire video on this. Mastery of the system, even if it can be a mess sometimes, requires some elbow grease. Other sea monsters. The giant squid is honestly pretty cool to me, not because it's some big Cthulhu monster, but because it's a normal monster, I guess. Saying it out loud probably sounds weird, but plausible, undeniable to an extent. With Assassin's Creed showing this thing twice, I'm assuming different versions of the same species. It makes me wonder if things like the Megalodon, sea serpents, and so on could exist in this universe. It makes much more sense in the magical mythology, so it wouldn't be invalid. Different cultures or surprisingly similar experiences when it comes to documenting on creatures found at sea, even if there was some embellishment or paranoia or exaggerating the stories. But it can't be ruled out, honestly. I mean, these things genuinely existed, and seeing the steroid squidward casually eating whales out in the ocean's Bay Sea could be hiding more historically accurate beasts. Modern day story, original ending. We've covered how Desmond was planned to be the ultimate assassin. But what sparks further speculation is the fact that there was an entire original ending to the modern day story that we never get, but we seem to have an outline at least. Firstly, there would be no ancestor to play as. Instead, Desmond would step up to the mantle and he'd be the one we played as. I found this explanation on a tucked away Reddit post by a deleted user, and the way it's written makes it feel like how I was in Herobrine's existence back in the day, so I'm going to read a part of it. Deleted user writes, the last game would see Desmond take down Abstergo and the Templars for good, ultimately being unable to stop the second advent of the great catastrophe that wiped out the precursors. It would end with him and Lucy, and probably some survivors, escaping the destruction of a spacefaring vessel the precursors had constructed and colonizing another world, with Desmond and Lucy acting as spiritual successors to Adam and Eve in leading mankind into a new era. Or at least, that's what I've always heard.
Starting a business is never easy, but we go down here and go that endeavor is about to become a whole lot easier than it has. Create a website that looks like you know what you're doing, even if you don't know what you're doing. Because you're using a website to develop a tool that knows exactly what it's doing. It helps you design a logo. This is what we came up with. We put it here, we put it everywhere on our website, and we even put it right here. What I'm telling you, from one single man, sister, you can have all your social media empire operating. You're doing it all. Everything. Let's go, baby!
But yeah, we can only really speculate how something like this would have gone down, and it's a shame that we never got to see this come to fruition. And a big part of this is that Ubisoft had a long-term deal with the franchise.
Might be a good hole up there.
I hear tell lumbering will be allowed to boot.
What does he want with the territory, if not the game and timber?
Don't know. Don't much care neither. Be skulking around these woods.
It's an entire conclusion to the franchise as a whole that was going to be much more complex and trippy, going as far as leaving the planet and rebuilding civilization. Some straight up end of Evangelion ass ending. PvP multiplayer lore. Remember the obscure MP and Brotherhood, Revelations, 3 and Black Flag that no one ever really spoke about? Maybe not, because no one spoke about it. The games had multiplayer that let you pick a character and go out to the map and hunt other assassins in a PvP game mode whilst you yourself were out to get kills. The best way I can describe it is like that sequence in John Wick 2 where they're trying to take each other out in the subway. They had absolutely no need to do this, but they gave the modes of law. That being that every single match you play was helping train Abstergo's own assassins by grabbing them through his homework and changing it slightly. Then there's the characters, which all have their own backstories, interlinking with others from the roster and some even connecting back to single player. But most people either never know this or not know all of the lore. For example, in Black Flag, the Lady Flag, otherwise known as Lucia Marquez, a woman who became an orphan following the death of her privateer dad. This meant growing up begging and stealing to navigate her way through the world, until she attempted the GTA Templar Horse and got caught by them. They gave her a simple choice: die or join the Order. She went on to become a capable member and holder of one of the 5 Templar keys. This is where our favourite Kenway comes in, Opia Amato, an assassin that's been hunting the Templar to settle an old score. See, Lucia's father I mentioned was a Alejandro Ortega de Montes. Not just any man to her, but the one that led a group to raid Ohio's childhood village. And Edward just wants a cool fit to raid ships, whatever, which is where we see the two go and absolutely slime Lucia. So yeah, safe to say there's a lot of love for these games' multiplayers. Project Legacy. This was a really niche Facebook game that Ubisoft spawned on the 30th of September 2010. You know, the year where Facebook was actually relevant, and we had Halo 1 and PVC on the 360 that just came out. If you were old enough, you probably had a BlackBerry phone, and white girl bangers were geeking. The game's premise was that players were Abstergo employees that were testing out tech called a data dump scanner, allowing them to experience the memories of ancestors they weren't related to. And they take you through the Italian wars, Rome, and a chapter that's just called Holidays for some reason. Well, actually, this one did come out on the 22nd of December, so I'll stop being a dunce. The sorrowful conclusion comes when Ubisoft employees must have leaned back on their office chairs, looked around at each other and said, "Shall we stop?" And stop is exactly what they did, giving it no more updates, and because of that, the game was so dead that Facebook removed it for violating their TOS when it comes to keeping games active on there. And so, Project Legacy was lowered in its grave and was shut down on the 15th of May 2013, very much a product of its time. Isu Message in Origins. In a similar vein to the Ezio Family Ghost Easter egg, there's one tucked away in Origins that can be found after the game hidden in Siwa, specifically inside the Amun Temple. You can find yourself in an Isu room where Bayek witnesses a message from the Apple of Eden showing the map. As the narrator ponders about whether such sacred information regarding pieces of Eden and the Isu's people are ever going to be found, and if they'll become enlightened, as he puts it. Most likely meaning if they'll use their teachings and pass the torch of sorts, kind of like what the Templars are hoping to achieve.
You want something of a real challenge? I proffer you making your way to the warehouse, mate. Real rollers down there.
How much did I use this house? It may take ages until you becomes enlightened. It's 10 p.m. Do you know what your device has installed? Some things are worth protecting. Your devices are moving. Learn more at internet website aikido.dev/10pm.
TB is estimated to affect about 30 million men in the U.S. Attempts to help find the right solution for you. With a simple online intake, you can connect with a licensed provider and get access to treatments and prescriptions with ingredients if prescribed.
Yeah,
Sound every step of the way. There's never been a better time to get the care you deserve. See why over 90% of HIMSS customers are satisfied with their treatment plans. Feel like yourself again with trusted ED treatment plans. Start today at HIMSS.com.
There's one thing the Easter excelled at, it was vapors, but this knowledge was clearly picked up by Altair as we see him pull the map up during
Take
his
what
journey.
you deserve,
Bizarrely, this
rebel.
wasn't anywhere close to being as accessible as
You've
it is
been
now.
warned!
Easily be missed.
You asked for it!
This at a really tight window and never again. Mitch was taking out Flavius, but not progressing to the end of that, and instead returned to see no one would ever do that, and that's what made it so obscure. So the one made it accessible as them, so when the vision game could just go back and find it. Partly because, like I said, no one on earth would do that. Except for that kind of when Ubisoft games are connected. I was really hesitant to put this here because this is obviously an Assassin's Creed iceberg, but some games have been connected to each other and it's worth exploring. Connected to any single polygons over the course of a decade. There have been though lots of connections that suggest they're in the same universe, and it's difficult to debate once you see them. So, there's smaller things on the internet, dogs related to the prize. I'm around the game to see most of these things. So it's the least like playing what's implied to be an AC game. Novas playing the AC film. If anyone remembers that on a projector with a visible copy on it nearby on a shelf, it's fairly easy to shrug these off as Easter eggs, and fellas, believe me, I've tried to with every bone in my body to the point where I wanted to take this off the iceberg because I felt like I left my sanity in the Eldergreen one. But then there are countless former Abstergo employees you can come across. Okay, that's maybe a little weird, but could be nothing. But it's not just one, it's loads. This was where I was getting convinced that these are a bit more than just nods, because there are clearly enough people with this former job that it's as though Ubisoft are saying that Abstergo are in fact real in this world too. These were people with a history that have worked there. That kid playing the video game earlier adds up too when you bear in mind that in Black Flag, it's established that Abstergo are making video games of the ancestors. Looks like they managed to get some sales over here in Watch Dogs Chicago. The biggest smoking gun is one of the targets that Aiden kills, and it's someone you meet in Black Flag, Oliver Garnu, the CEO of Abstergo Entertainment. His contract even says, targeted by the Brotherhood. Aiden succeeds in killing him, and he's never seen again in the Assassin's Creed games. He even comes up again in Origins, where Lila can snoop around character databases on the computer and find what looks to be CCTV footage or something of Aiden straight up smoking Oliver on their own. They're Easter eggs. There are enough of these things where the lines get real blurry as to whether or not these two games are in the same universe or not. They don't feel like just Easter eggs now. Ubisoft are putting way too much thought into these occurrences for it to be a troll. Then again, Treyarch were pulling some devious moves from 2012 to 2019. Ubisoft even added an entire vacant Abstergo facility in a Far Cry 3 DLC. The fact is there are too many of these things to just be little nods. They've compounded into a shared universe, and the devs aren't shying away from it exactly. They've never really given a straight answer. I keep hearing it's confirmed, then I'll see something else saying that isn't, making it hard to keep a straight case. Legion, the latest game in the series, has been speculated to be an uprising from civilians with similar assassination sequences, and the DLC having, no joke, an assassin crypt underbooking a palace. Genuinely. and there are even statues of characters that will appear there. The Fry twins and Edward Kenway, which makes sense for him to be there too because he retired to London. It's as though the devs were wanting to continue the story in primarily Watch Dogs, but considering the franchise's multiple failures, it's been put on a very long pause. I've got to ask, do you think these games are connected? Or maybe Ubisoft was just getting too Easter egg happy and accidentally create a shared universe? But you know, hey, when that happens, regardless, their hot and cold tone, saying one thing, showing 5 others, leads one to wonder if the assassins are in the midst of a more digital age.
GOP ones are like having a mute button for food noise. Which is great because I swear these little donut nuggets have been calling my name. But most people stop the next eventually. That's the next move. GOP ones to quiet the noise and healthy habits. So if your meds stop, you don't reach for ice cream. You reach for something better. I want to get in a full set. Noom. Please with Phoenix. Get started at noom.com.
Assassin's Creed Utopia. Back in 2012, that was an upcoming game that you most likely didn't play because you were experiencing Mistfire for the first time and probably didn't have a phone to play this game on anyway. The peak of mobile gaming was riding the tide, and for companies it was do or die, so they teamed up with Kabam and tried to get this burger flipping. They had the idea of Assassin's Creed Utopia, a game that would have came out alongside 3, and the story was supposed to be about the Assassin's Revolution, which was another way it was connected to 3, and would have had players going through all the ages and building the Assassin's Brotherhood with social aspects like PvP, guild, base building within those guilds. When I was reading up on this, I found that the lead up to it was so odd, in the sense that it felt like everyone working on it were almost scared to show this off. Like in a Tokyo Game Conference, the GREE, a partner that teamed up with Ubisoft to work on the game, didn't mention Utopia as one of their highlighted games. Weird for one of the biggest IPs in gaming at the time. The project was also mysteriously delayed several times, and whenever there were interviews and stuff, it seemed like the game was being tiptoed around. So I reckon that there was a quiet understanding during the development cycle that the game was going to fail, and no one really wanted to address the elephant in the room. And I'm guessing there was a lot of money put into the IP and development, so the Sunk Cost Fallacy had their balls tightly clenched in its hand. Back to the actual game, there were aspects of RTS in there, with the colony management and army arranging, which definitely feels out of place for an AC game. The house with other players took place on a 3x3 grid. The screenshot showed there was that classic AC gameplay in there too, which I guess was the main part of the game. And then there was apparently over characters that could be involved as well. I'm guessing it would take some grinding and have a lot of content to progress with, because it was planned as a freemium game. The classic is free to download, but the experience will only crush your morale once you get the ball out. It's clear this isn't even available to play, so what happened? In fact, it was never available to play. Whilst the game was being weirdly avoided, it seemed that after showing as little as they could about it, it vanished from the public space for a good while. Several months, no real reports about Utopia came up. The winter of 2012 was rapidly approaching. AC3 had already came out, and yet, silence. Nothing happened. Some people had reason to believe nothing ever happened, because this specific time, it really didn't. 2012 passed, and by the end of the winter, now in 2014, there was still no news, and the game had been snuffed out. It was cancelled. It was honestly just hoping that people would forget about this lost Utopia. Months and months of silence persisted on all the way to the November, where Ubisoft Netherlands came out and said, so the game has been cancelled, with no explanation given. Once again, very vaguely avoiding talking about it. Then 4 years later, in 2017, an artist called Lu Zhang hired to do concept art for the game, said an equally vague quote of that the game's development had been frozen due to some reasons. So Assassin's Creed Utopia may just be one of the most head-scratching lost games ever not made. Davenport Homestead disappearance. The importance and iconicness of the Davenport Homestead can't be stated enough. Where Achilles lived, being passed on to Connor, who was trained there, and the heart of the colonial Assassin's community. and somehow it just vanished. The little description we get is that it literally disappeared in the early 19th century. Achilles is the owner during the events of Rogue in AC3, all the way until he dies in 1781, where he gave it to Connor. By this point, it was a fully fledged community, the Minecraft Forever world you dream of. So Achilles taking some good care of it through the years, and then Connor, along with the longevity and strong foundation it had, makes his disappearance so baffling. Jump to 1804, the assassin and grandson of Chadwalla, Esiosa, was the last known guy to go there. And it's about then the records go foggy. There are a ton of theories, of course. Some think the Templars came to the house, destroying the place. Some think there was some kind of temporary truce between the Templars and the Assassins, leading to this place not being as important or needed, but that doesn't sit right with me, honestly. A natural disaster could have done it, but if it was that simple, I think the game would have just told us. The theory I've always thought made the most sense, will be obscure and vague enough that it keeps you guessing what exactly happened, is that the Assassins had to do what they do best. The Templars know this is one of their main bases of operations, containing so much sensitive info that maybe they had to take everything down, abandon and destroy the place to show it was never there. After all, secrecy is quite literally how the Crudi function, and during the time period of Three in Rogue, the Templars were insanely locked in, and dishing out some spankings. So I'm at the coffee shop and this woman walks up to me like, hey, I saw one of your ads, but you actually have your mobile. I was like, yeah. Right. She was really like, okay, think about it. You have this place over in Massachusetts that's become an entire community, and you don't think the word will get out to enough of the wrong people that they're hiding stuff. With how out there the homestead got, the secrecy naturally would retract. So when a tragic need to keep their hidden creed hidden, and maybe there could have been a planned upcoming Templar attack, they made sure the entire place vanished without a trace, staying one step ahead and doing it so well, even the history records are confused. Of course, that's just what I think. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one, as there are so many explanations as to what may have happened, but as it stands, we are never going to get real closure to the unsettling days of the Dark Homestead experience. Line, dot, on Morse code. Yes, you probably deduce that this is some kind of code or cipher, and if you're a COD Zombies player, I'll bet your ears pricked up like a dog behind a subway counter. In Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you can find more of Subject 16's puzzles that serve as collectibles, and build up to an eventual mod drop. Once you collect all of these fragmented memories, you'll get the achievement that's all those lines and dots and lines. They're Morse code, and are an interesting Cold War break that the series has never done again since. Saying I am alive when deciphered, and Subject 16 letting me know that Bro is going to be making an appearance one more time for that sequel. However, this Reddit user, Venomous Platypus, had this idea that it could be promoting an at-the-time upcoming game they had cooking around when Revelations was supposed to come out. They've been hunting for the trophies in Brotherhood. One of them is mysteriously named ... which translates to I am alive. This is a reference to Subject 16, as you get this trophy-slash achievement when you solve all these puzzles. As you may know, Ubisoft is currently working on a game called I Am Alive. I remembered this when I read the Morse code. This made me think that this game may be related to Assassin's Creed somehow. Platypus starts explaining how these are connected, and the points do begin adding up. For starters, the OG Assassin's Creed producer, Jade Raymond, was working on the project, which certainly raises an eyebrow. He lays out the idea that the guy you play as, apparently called Adam, but it seems like when the game got released he was unnamed, was trying to reunite with his family amidst the remains of a cataclysmic event. Something that lines up well with AC, considering the Bible references to Adam, and with the catastrophe set to happen in 2012, this would also mean that Adam would have to rebuild the world. Because of this, he was spitballing that the game would be the result of it, having failed to prevent it, and this was the bleak future it brought. With Subject 16 even saying the following, alluding to this happening: it is far later than you know, too late to save them. Everything you hope to become, everything you hold dear, is already gone. Further pondering leads to the conclusion that maybe this Adam guy is Desmond, or his future son, which is partially right with what we know, except his life. The cherry on top being that the game was released in 2012, the year of the supposed catastrophe. I've got to be honest, Rogue had a point back then, and it guess left me wondering with the context we have about Ubisoft's boner for half-committed shared universes like we looked at further up in the chart, if there was some kind of plan to tie AC to this niche game, to maybe boost sales and enrich the story, the hindsight we have now means that we can look at what started out as a game achievement in an entirely new lens, and Ubisoft could have been setting up a new IP using AC to popularize it, or connect it as a what-if setting, which sounds likely to me. The Ghost of 1713. This has been driving me crazy, because there really isn't much info about this. In AC4, there are NPCs that can be apparently heard talking about someone they call the Ghost of 1713. I've only heard of this because when I went round to Nassau to try and find some NPCs talking about it, I was left searching for a good while. Coming back empty-eared, only left with hearing the ramblings of passing gases and nonsense. To start, let's get some historical context and we'll attempt to solve yes, it was the establishment of laws that pretty much enabled it to hit its golden age and continue for as long as it did. Bouncing off from the Spanish Succession War, which ended in that year, loads of privateers that were hired by the government decided to get swashbuckling. They were out of a job, they had no purpose, and those set of skills they had only led them down one path. Because of this, going out seafaring became very dangerous, if you can imagine. Yes, unemployed people were having an uprising and adopting Paris. Being exactly as insane as it sounds, the Ghost of 1713 wasn't at all some supernatural ongoing like I spent all this time thinking it was. It instead became a manifestation of a Armenian rebellion that sought riches and freedoms beyond what any man could reasonably get, and that's what those people would have been talking about. This ghost was the effects of how the world shifted, and its consequences echoing out over the seas. Every privateer turned pirate would become another lost soul. But if you know something about this, and there's something I've missed, it's all I don't know. Because the good social stuff, this is it's so well done.
Some things are worth protecting. Your devices are movable. Learn more at internet website aikido.dev/10pm.
This element check completely changed my life, and it came from a car accident I almost forgot about. I'm honestly shaking as I record this. I never imagined something this big could come from an accident that felt so small at the time. If you've been in any kind of vehicle accident in the past 2 years, even if you think it was minor, even if you were just a passenger, you might be entitled to a far larger loss. Here's my story. Something that I had been faith, driver standard team, hospital standing by the person that I did. We exchanged it that way and things. For the next few weeks, the power was spread the same. Spread elevations to counter this. I actually qualify for a real settlement? I figure, yeah, right. But I had nothing to lose. A couple of things go through is that retired and put insurance first over me. And here's where it gets crazy. I shared this role with 5 people who have and just asked her if her watching my case. She did not like she can't. And he recommended thought his accident over a year ago was too late in the sense of she filed, she always got those ones. 5 different situations, and all of them discovered they were entitled to way more than 2 years of felony tells you. Insurance companies have one job, to pay you as little as possible. They count on you not knowing your rights. But this rule changes everything. You don't need to understand law. You don't need to hunt for some random attorney. You just click the link below this video, answer 4 basic questions, and it instantly checks if your case qualifies. If you do, they connect you with a specialist who handles everything. No upfront fees, no court dates, no fighting insurance companies yourself. A year ago, I would have accepted that tiny insurance payout and considered myself lucky. But knowledge is power. Diana was just a passenger. Kevin thought his case was expired. Ryan thought his was too minor. Even Janet, who can barely send a text, discovered what was possible. The craziest part? Most accident victims leave massive amounts of money behind, simply because they don't know which life exists. Insurance companies love when you stay in the dark. But you're watching this video right now, which means you don't have to. Whether you were driving, riding as a passenger, walking, cycling, or even in an Uber, if someone else caused your accident in the past 2 years, you deserve to know what you may actually be entitled to. Don't make the same mistake we made. Don't let insurance companies dictate what your needs are. Well, I have one of
a Japanese figure in that night sounds like a fortune, which makes this a little more complicated. If that's the case, I use an optical notebook with one tracks. If not, however, it's nothing that was done by a level designer as a little joke and the team, and their love for all things feeling. It's important to note that it started with a word, and maybe everything after was a reference to this great scene in particular, and maybe this first time around was meant to be a darkness of humor, or maybe it's yes, as it's distance into the bodies of my grandma. And he was like, no idea if you've been taking your meds, but sure. He used himself as a guinea pig to test a theory, and it failed horribly, with his mind breaking and unable to leave his body. It seems like a lot of his DNA was injected into the human gene pool, because remember, they went all ratatouille in the kitchen and made humans. So this DNA of their own was a little something they wanted to sprinkle in there, and thus this led to people being born as an Isu, specifically reincarnated versions of Aita, and as they grow older would become more like him. As it stands, this list of names are all we know about potential people that could be our Isu. Some features of them are identifiable, like Heterochromia being a big one, which I assume is what can land on the list. People have been on the smallest things. We're taking a look here. Some notable ones are the Wanderer, born Judea, status, believed to have encountered Christ, all references to this sage are anecdotal, however, awaiting further information. Name unknown. Born 6th century Byzantium during Justinian's reign. Status: a fragmented series of congregation was a sage. We are currently mining for further memories from this period. Name unknown. Nationality: Indian. Born 1885. Status: we have a lengthy series of memories that take place during the creation of the Indian National Congress, in which the state was called nationality was a big of influence and status. However, as it seems, new scholars AC2 lets you go to the conference room where you can access a laptop there that details this event as true. And the twist being that the Isu technology was used to make this successful. They didn't want to pursue it further due to paradox concerns. Instead, opting to keep it stowed away, presumably whenever they need a wild card. There's also a moon landing I mentioned, which didn't happen, but it wasn't for achievement for man. It was an achievement from Stoger, who went there with a secret motive of retrieving a piece of Eden on the JFK assassination. Also a Templar stuff because he didn't agree with their ideals, and so they got a sleeper agent to murk him. After that, they replaced him with Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was working with them and was himself a Templar. Yeah, this shit is wild, and it gets to a point where you can assume whatever historical tragedy or even success was going on during each decade, it was caused by or stirred in favor for Habsburgo themselves, who were pulling strings somewhere in the mess, and rewriting history. Leaving you with the unsettling notion that whatever history you look at in this universe, this new world order are always behind it, to no one's benefit but their own. This month at Yonkers Theater, celebrating sales back in the 20s, 20s, 60s, great offer and browse our entire inventory anytime. These offers expire at the end of the month, so take advantage of the savings today.
And we are back at the surface again. I am stoked to have been doing an Assassin's Creed Iceberg, a series that holds a special place in my heart because I've loved it ever since I was a kid. And with the announcement of the remake, my interest in the series is sharp again naturally. And as soon as I saw that trailer, I awoke like the Winter Soldier and I knew what had to be done. And as always, I want to say thank you so much for sticking around, checking out this stuff, and continuing to show this support. It means so much. I'd love to go all in and ramble about some upcoming projects I want to do and really interesting videos for the channel, but I'm going to hold fire. But all I will say is it may be a Horizon Resident Evil. I don't really have much else to say. I just hope you enjoyed the Iceberg and it felt like a great dive into Assassin's Creed. And if there's anything you need to correct or just want to add some more information or any entries that you would have put on the Iceberg, then comment down below. And this is coming out before the Black Flag remake, and if it comes out and it's cheeks, I think I might actually go and drive a boat into an Iceberg. But let's hope it's fun. It looks pretty good, all things considered. So if you end up getting your hands on the game, then enjoy. Let's hope it's a good one. Feel free to become an exceptional member today. It's a great way to show support and keep this little jackal on the internet voyaging. I'll sometimes post content on there whenever I feel like it, so there's also some more bonuses. But that kind of support goes such a long way, honestly. And also don't forget, if you are interested in Holy, the kind of sugar-free alternative that actually feels nice to drink, remember to use the link in the description. And don't forget, check out for some money off. You can use Exceptional or Exceptional 5. But anyways guys, I'm going to leave this video here today. If you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like button. Comment your thoughts down below. Like I said, corrections, any extra things you would have put on there, or what your favourite entry was. I'd love to hear it. Subscribe to the channel too to stay notified whenever I upload a video. Thank you so much for watching. You're a real one, and I'll see you next time. Load up the characters that a slave owner, a troublemaker, and a war criminal. But as the game progresses, these figures are depicted as making a structure that's died from the problem that we don't make them as a temple. This is the usually portrayed as the bad process. And let's make this a start to event in actually type of first of this game is the epicenter of the church directly actually as like most against the interpretation and realistic scientific plausible events such as an underground civilization to affecting race. The handling of historical figures and events is also problematic. The game takes liberties with figures like Lawrence Washington, who is George Washington's brother, and portraying him as a general. The real nightmare is the next day.
Andrew, we'll be asking you the first question. Ready? In what state is Seattle located? Washington. Correct. Arachnophobia is the fear of what? Virus. Correct. What is the most popular search engine in the world? Google. Correct.
It's even really smart. But if I can just be as quick and accurate as possible, I think I've got an edge in this one.
What gas is typically used to fuel an outdoor grill?
Propane.
Correct. What is the name for an animal doctor?
Veterinarian.
Correct. What actor stars as the title character in the John Wick films?
Keanu Reeves.
Correct. Apart from world champion, what is the highest title a player can earn in chess?
Grandmaster.
Correct. What is the name of the living snowman played by Josh Gad in the movie Frozen?
Frosty.
What famous vampire lives in a castle in Transylvania? Dracula. Correct. What Breaking Bad spin-off series told the story of a lawyer, Better Call Saul? Correct. What kind of animal is Brian Griffin? Patrick Gates star, Steve-O, Lucy.
That was so good. I'm nervous.
Fine. Ilaria, you're next. The drink Arnold Palmer is half tea and half what? Lemonade. Correct. What city is the White House located in? Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to ask it. What is the more common name for a human cranium? Right. What's the answer? Okay, so. Yeah, wait till she gets it right.
Everybody's just an angular, like.
I got high figures in the phase of those two. I embarrass myself because I was like rush answering all the questions.
Put the clock back, reset it to whatever it was, and then I'll just move on to the next question. It's alternating, but if it happens again, I will score the point.
Do it.
What ancient Chinese medicine involves inserting needles? Correct. What popular movie series tells the love story between Bella Swan and Evan Cullen?
I was impressed with his commitment to getting that question right. I was like, dude, just say pass. Just say pass. Twilight. Correct. Ilaria, congratulations.
Yeah, man.
Jojo.
That's very good under pressure. So am I.
Ready?
What, maybe?
What sport is Serena Williams famous for playing? Correct. What was the first ever cryptocurrency? What Italian city is famous for its canals? Venice. Correct. Aretha Franklin is known as the Queen of... Correct.
Jojo's like a silent, killer here. She's fast.
What kind of acid makes lemon sour? Jojo, in what type of clothing are you likely to find a Windsor knot? That's it. What is the nickname for the legendary Loch Ness Monster? That's it. Butterfly freestyle presto for all types of what? Correct. In what city did the famous Boston Tea Party take place? Boston. Correct. Congratulations, Max. That was an epic battle.
It's not. I should have gotten that because first of all, Tess is talking really fancy, like dice ball, it's wins and all.
Chase, John, you're up next.
Oh, we have to wait to be last.
We're done. What is the Spanish word for no? L. Correct. What does the L in BLT stand for? Yes. Correct. What rock singer is known as the Boss? That's one of the blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart called. On what continent can you find the world's biggest rainforest? South America. Correct. What NBA legend's nickname is King James?
I hear NBA, and I hear King James.
Come on.
Without addressing the historical context, initially the calculating system is a real historical figure is presented with alternate characteristics and relationships that display up to not align with the documented history. This canon is specifically focusing on the symbols. That's why I expect events and the events these providing sensitive characters looks like this state of depth of characters. However, it is not directly consistency. The game can take precedence across despite the potential variations. stories, providing additional details in some areas while possibly skimming over others. If there are discrepancies, the game's canon should be prioritized. The AC Wiki sourcing policy is cited listing the novelization as part of the canon, so in summary, the novels are generally considered canon because they align with the game's stories, but it is recommended to label a game canon in case of conflicting details.
My husband used to ejaculate prematurely until this. Now he's ejaculating so fast. I'm so confused about it. It's starting to feel like control. I used to be me and my husband before I started this treatment plan. Sometimes not climate control. This year, it's versus it had developed. And early finance treatment is good. Helps it stay hard and does not suffer its problems. Result is seeded to the bear. For Joe, it's 100% online. If you get the prescription, it's delivered right to your door. Free shipping and completely screen packaging. No insurance supplies. That can't be affordable though, right? Actually, it costs us a lot to get day. Well, I'm sending the link right now, and he's getting started in spending. Okay, so make this video is right now the time of the video. I'm sure the person uses me. Tell them there's me if you go for it. But let's do this. Circulating early in 2026, don't be ashamed of this. It's less likely to proven steroids develop and be treatment to help meds stay hard and last longer. The whole process is 100% online. No in-person visits, cost less than a lotto ticket per day, and no insurance required with free shipping right to your door if prescribed. My hubby is ejaculating so quickly. I'm so anxious about it. Sex is starting to feel like a chore. That used to be me and my husband before I discovered this treatment option like him. I swear. It's in the marriage treatment developed though. Love ED treatment. So it's a stay hard and has longer and that change to the doctor. It's entirely online. Delivered right to your door with free shipping if you get a prescription. No insurance on it. Chest link is getting started today.
I spent $1,000 building the ultimate winter level dragon there. Yes, that's a little well. And we've got a consistent backwards that's going to help us out with our dragon drive.
Oh my fucking god, bro.
Spare parts, equipment, gear, what you can physically carry in the truck. But the one thing that nobody talks about is power. And I don't mean electricity. We've got
Oh my fucking god, oh my fucking god, bro.
that where the jacket Giant solar generator 5,000 plus comes into play. I'm going to show you guys exactly why we're going to be bringing this along for the trip. And if you're interested, link down below. Check it out for yourself. Alright, so I want to spend a few minutes on this because it genuinely solved for me. Elijah Mars, born around 2005, and he holds a leading position as his sage, and is also the illegitimate son of President Mars. His intriguing story unfolds as he becomes entangled with the influence of the First Will, initially appearing to serve the interests of particularly those of Juno. However, Elijah's alliance with the instruments is a facade, as they had in fact murdered his own mother under the guise of police. Raised by assassins but estranged from them since 2005, since the death of his sister, Elijah's origins trace back to a family-skin encounter with the Mars and the Temple. The Templars have still discovered its existence. This explanation to investment. Elijah's life takes a very dark turn when Juno's followers seek to advertise while different by continuing his mother. As to them, Elijah harbors a desire for revenge and all the instances of violence. As he on them, this was including the crucial moment in 2017, when sees the ambushing of assassin Snyder. Despite Juno's behaving Elijah's abilities, he seems to have his numbers, and then in a dramatic twist, betrays Juno and avenges his mother day by day and death. As an expected red switch to the same, Charles Dark to roll as a co-pilot. Skills of the master as an assassin, but assuming his death due to destruction. That was exception and extremely interesting coincidence in series DNA. His actions may be very short role regarding his as Templars, finding the very perspective of all matter, power, and control. The shadows of Victoria the mysterious figure of Spring-Clear Jack is in the center of the mysterious cult, sporting costumes to terrorize the city's inhabitants. Commissioned by Charles Dickens, the assassins need to fry the task of recording the identity of the legend. Tracking Jack tricks a warehouse guarded by Curtis, the fighters discover a full of Jack's costumes. Dispatching the cult's leader and followers, they don't get anything to tell. Yet another more supernatural version of Spring-Clear Jack emerged, resembling cult leader in both appearance and behavior. Engaging in this supernatural village, the fighters face an endless illusions and in a of catastrophic.
I just got paid $62,000 for my car accident using nothing but this app on my phone.
If you've never heard of free case evals, it's quickly becoming one of the largest legal help platforms in the country for car crash victims. They built this tool that's already helped over 140,000 people get life-changing settlement checks, all from just answering a few questions. Here's how it works. The app asks 4 simple questions about your accident. Then it compares your case to millions of others. In seconds, it tells you whether you qualify for a big cash payout. I first found out about this from a guy named Raymond about 3 years ago. Raymond got hit hard in a bad crash. He lost his car, was dealing with serious pain, and the insurance company refused to pay him any fare. So he posted a video to this exact tool. Got a $125,000 payout in just a few months. Then it happened to me. I was stopped at a red light when some distracted driver slammed into the back of my car. I messed up my back, my car was totaled, and worst of all, I lost my job because I had no way to get to work. Luckily, I remembered Raymond's video. I clicked the same link he used, answered the 4 questions, and boom, it said I qualified. Fast forward just 60 days, and I had this check in my hands. It helped me replace my income, pay off debt, and get a new ride. Then I shared this tool on my own social media, and my friend Jasmine used it. She ended up getting $147,000. I also told my buddy Eli, who had been in a wreck the week before. He was skeptical, but he gave it a shot and got $178,000. What I love most is how beginner-friendly it is. You don't need to know anything about the law. Just click the link, answer 4 questions, And in seconds, it tells you what you might qualify for. And if your case qualifies, you get connected to a free case eval specialist who handles everything. No fees up front, no court dates, no stress. A few years ago, I had no idea what to do after a car accident. I probably would have just hired some random attorney and hoped for the best. And we all know how that usually goes. But now I know better. And I'm glad I